Begin with, I started building models when I was about 8 years old. Started flying U-control stuff. I lived in Western Pennsylvania and belonged to a club, joined a group that we worked. They had space in our community center, and we actually flew the U-control airplanes inside the gymnasium. And then after a session of flying, all of us who were flying grabbed rags and we got down our hands and knees and went around the floor to clean up the oil that was left on the floor from the airplanes. And I moved to New Jersey and didn't have any idea about how to fly outside. I had never seen a model fly outside. So I had taken my U-control planes with me, and I very quickly got 2 or 3 circles in and crashed every plane that I owned. And I came to the conclusion at 16 years old that you can't fly models outdoors. So I started building static models. Built the little 1/12 scale model trucks, cars, all kinds of stuff. Even had one win a contest and go to be sent to California for some national competition. I didn't do well with that. But anyway, went to Vietnam in 1969. Came back in 70. While I was in Vietnam, I joined AMA. Had never heard of it, but I joined the Academy of Model Aeronautics. Started getting the newsletter, the monthly magazine, and lo and behold, a month or so before I was due to rotate home, I was looking at the competition section in the back of the magazine, and it had a competition in Endicott, New York, where my wife was living with our son. So I sat down and I wrote a letter to a fellow's name was Bob Knoll. I don't know if any of you recognize that name, but he was a very, very prominent pattern flyer and did a lot of pylon racing as well back in the 70s and 80s. I sent this note to Bob Knoll. I came back from Vietnam on a Wednesday. I got back to New York on a Wednesday. Thursday, my wife went to work. She came home. I had dinner ready. We had just finished dinner and the phone rang. Well, obviously, hell, I've been gone for a year. It's not going to be for me. She answers the phone. She has a strange look on her face, and she looks at me and she says, "It's for you." It was Bob Knoll. He called. We talked for a few minutes. I hung up and I looked at my wife and I said, "I'm going to a model airplane meeting tomorrow night." That was my start of radio control indoctrination. And one of the things that I was very fortunate in belonging to a club called the Aero Guidance Society, abbreviated AGS. And I don't know if I've got, I don't have the logo. Oh, yes, I do. This is the AGS logo. That club was formed back in 1954, I believe it was, by a group. Endicott is the home of IBM. And between Endicott and Owego, which is about 12 miles away, the 2 plants there, plus the think tank that they set up in just outside of Endicott, there were something like 15,000 IBM employees. And a group of them got together. I could name them for you, but you wouldn't recognize most of the names. But in '54, they got together and formed the Aero Guidance Society. One of the requirements in their bylaws was that they hold a contest every year. So back in, I don't remember what year it was now, but we celebrated our 50th anniversary of having a pattern contest every single year for that 50 years. We were recognized by AMA had a big article in there. We produced a program for, the club was very, very active. Because the people there were primarily IBM engineers, they were all detail oriented and to the nth degree. Most of them were IBM managers and nothing got by them. Fortunately, I was able to learn from those people. And I started flying, and I'll bet every one of you fly Mode 2, where you have the aileron and elevator on the right-hand stick. I started out with that, but we had 2 or 3 of the guys. Any of you heard of, I can't remember the name of it. There was a system of flying prior to the proportional radios that we have now. That is, escapement was a different thing. The escapement was just a matter of right or left and 1 click or 2 clicks, so forth.
Galloping Ghost.
But
Galloping Ghost.
no, Galloping Ghost is the same thing. It's just going all the way, and when you push it once, it stays one direction. You push it twice, it stays the other direction. There was one that it had the 2 buttons on it, but they weren't proportional. So if you wanted up elevator, you would click the stick for up, and it would give a little bit of up each time you clicked. So if you held it, then it would give it full up, but you didn't always want full up. So because you're trying to control aileron and elevator at the same time, they put the elevator on the right one, or the elevator on the left one, up and down, and the aileron on the right one, so that they could flip both of them without interfering with each other. That was called Mode 1. When the proportional came out, a lot of the fellows who were flying this system, there is a name for it, I'm drawing a blank, but they were flying this system, so they were used to elevator on the left-hand side and aileron on the right. So I was having a lot of trouble flying aileron and elevator on that right-hand stick with the throttle on the left and the rudder on the left. And after a couple of summers, 70, 71, 72, maybe, trying to fly the damn thing on that Mode 2 system, I was very frustrated. I just could not get it. 2 of our top flyers were flying Mode 1. Bob Knoll was one of them. And he said, Terry, why don't you give Mode 1 a try? So I put together a small plane. We had a big field right in our development that was part of the school in the development. I spent that summer, or that winter, flying this other plane on Mode 2 with the elevator on the left and the aileron on the right. I took to it. I really liked it. Went to full proportional the following summer, that spring of 70, probably 72. And my first flight up was a complete success. This is the way to go. And it is the way to go as far as I'm concerned with pattern aircraft, because you can hold your aileron for a slow roll and with your left hand draw a circle for your rudder, elevator, rudder input as you're doing that slow roll. It makes it so much easier than trying to hold the aileron for slow roll and feed in the rudder and feed in the elevator. It doesn't work for me.
Was it called pulse?
Pulse control, yes. Yes, that's what it was.
AI is great.
Yeah, each blip was a pulse control sent to the radio. So that gives you a background on my flying, and I got into in '88. My oldest son was in high school and became friends with another fellow who was a year ahead of him, and they were members of the radio control club, and he was getting involved in pattern flying. So 86, I guess it was. 88 was the first national competition I went to, and that was down here in Tidewater, Virginia. And I placed in the intermediate class. We had 70 contestants in one class. Now, you don't get 70 contestants at the whole nationals for all 4 classes. I placed 17th out of 70 at Tidewater that year. And it was my first real big competition, and I just went from there. Never got past advanced class, and today I'd be lucky to fly novice class. but
Don't get away with this.
I really enjoyed that. But in order to get there, I had to learn how to build. And again, Bob Knoll was one of the premier builders. Built many, many pattern airplanes for other people. I wasn't making enough money to pay people to build for me. I enjoyed building, and I wasn't making enough money to actually support the hobby. So I started building for other people. I've built over 350 airplanes, most of them for other people. I brought 2 complete airplanes, both of them old. This one is 20 years old. I've dated and numbered every one. This was number 293 that I built, and it was finished in September of '06. So this airplane is 20 years old. That monocoque has not been touched in 20 years.
Wow, that's impressive.
I pulled it out of storage down in the basement. And didn't touch it. You see a couple of wrinkles in the back, and you can see where it was damaged. I got damaged in 12 when I was moving down here, and I just never fixed it. The other plane back there that I brought the picture of it. That was an ARF that was originally just pink and white. And I flew it that way for a couple of years and decided that I wanted something more unique, and that's what I did. This again is all monocoque, even the monocoque on the wood fuselage and on the canopy. This is painted, but the stars are monocoque, super monocoque, it's the sticky. And there's a couple of key things with it. Number one is you cannot have a knife that's too sharp. The sharper it is, the better it is. Here's a sharpener for scissors. And you put it in here and draw it a few times, and that sharpens those blades to the point where you can take this and you slide it through rather than cut it. You can get a nice sharp. Gordon sent me a list of questions.
Problems.
Problems. One of the things that, again, your finished surface is not going to look any better than what's underneath. You have to have a good, smooth surface. So you take a fine paper and go over it.
And how fine is fine?
Well, I'll pass this around so you can see. This is a little coarser, but you can get different things for this.
Cause I've seen anywhere from
Yeah.
200 to 400
Yeah.
is fine.
Well, I try to go to 600,
Okay,
but let all of you feel that wingtip and how smooth that is.
You got a long wing on purpose, huh? I gotcha.
yeah.
Left is a wing strut here, yeah.
So ideally, you want to get that just as smooth as you possibly can, because that's what the final finish is going to look like, whatever that is. Again, sharp instruments for cutting. If you're going to cut any kind of a pattern, and the material that's here, this is made by Fiskars, and I have 3. This is an extra one. If anyone doesn't have and would like to have, I'll sell you this for $5. Then I don't have to carry it back home. Underneath it, I have a piece of tempered glass that I bought specifically for the size of the covering. And there are times when you want to use the glass as a cutting surface too.
Is there an advantage to one over the other?
Yeah, there are some times when it's advantageous to have that. The second thing, on that preparation, is a tack rag. So if you felt this, there would be a little bit of dust on it. The tack rag then takes that dust off of it. And I learned a lot from a fellow by the name of Fay Stilley. Do any of you recognize the name? Fay was the quintessential monocoat artist. And artist is the best word in the world to describe him. It wasn't until after he retired and quit building that I was finally able to win at the ring show. Because he showed up, there was one year he showed up with an airplane that was a Russian pattern plane, full scale model of it, and he had done that thing in a purely American finish. It was all white, and I can't remember what was on the top, but on the bottom was an eagle. When you turn that thing over, this eagle fuselage, the body of the eagle was on the fuselage. The bottom, the wings were the wings of the eagle. Every feather was 2 colors, and every feather, if you took that thing and flipped it like this, they would have matched absolutely perfectly. The symmetry on that and the detail that he had was absolutely beyond compare. And when I saw that particular airplane, I'd seen many that he had done up until then. I talked to him and got him to come to Endicott and do a presentation we had 3 active clubs there, did a presentation, lasted a whole day. And we had about 50 people there for that day to watch Fay. He was just fantastic, and I could never even come close. The detail that he put was phenomenal. The key, in my estimation, the key to getting a good tight finish, and again, finish on that Falcon. Hasn't been touched in 20 years. My goal, when I cover a surface, and let's see if do you want me to do something with this, Gordy?
It's entirely up to you. That's,
You have a preferred color.
Lighter yellow. It was donated to the club. I rehabbed the wing, and the fuselage is still in sorry shape.
It's its goal in life to be a tree
Now,
again.
There's a little bit of a different technique in covering an open structure and a solid structure. A pattern airplane, as an example, has a styrofoam wing with a full 16th inch sheeting on it. You don't have any open bays. Little bit different covering that. But the similarity is that you want the covering to look like it's shrunk before you shrink it.
Okay.
And the way you do that, let's see what I can do. It's not quite gonna do it.
If you need another set of hands, sing out one of these guys.
Yep, just hop.
I won't. There's a lot. Look at that, look at
But you think that the key to keeping it from sagging is just getting it so that
Tight.
it's already tight before you put it on, so that when it relaxes, it really, doesn't have a place to relax to then. Is the gist.
my questions were two. We all get
Yeah.
the general that got hot and it's sagged.
Exactly.
I get it sits in the basement, which gets cold in the winter and it sags anyway.
Right, yeah, same here. Mine
I
sags.
thought sagging went with old age.
Yeah.
This is
Good thing we don't have.
this is
There's a lot of things that sang. I mean,
This is being recorded, keep it PG, guys.
Barry, when you started this, you said it needs to look like something
the
before you
tools-
cover. What did you say?
Tools that I use, magic marker, the X-Acto knife, and somebody, before we started this, somebody asked about bubbles, said something you could get bubbles in something. A needle, a sewing needle, to punch a hole in one edge of the bubble, and you can push the air right out of it. Okay, let's quickly.
What's your opinion on the woodpecker style, where you put the little dimples in the balsa before you cover it? What's your opinion on the woodpecker type pull before you cover it? No.
And while you're holding that,
I got one of those once, I tried it, and it didn't, there was no benefit
Okay.
to it.
and while you're.
It sounds good, somebody had an idea that, the theory was that it would eliminate the bubbling, but it doesn't.
Right, capture the outgases of the monocoque when it was needed to give it a place to go, right?
While you're holding there, Terry, I did the level best I could to get the color and the other fabric out of it. But you can see there's places where the glue melted into the wood.
This,
Other than using the heating iron and trying to pull gently to keep the color with the fabric, is there any tips you would have to removing fabric?
no, you just have to go by feel, do what feels right. Now here, again, if you've got the edge of the monocoat where you can get under there to actually peel it apart, you're fine. But if you're dealing with something that's not on the edge, if you take that sharp monocoat or sharp X-Acto and just slide it underneath the bottom, now you loosen that and can pull it off. Now, once you've got that on, and you see I left about an inch or so overhanging, a little bit more on the edge, just didn't. And I think I'll clean this up. And see, at the center of the wing, I'm gonna go about a quarter of an inch or so beyond that center. So when I do the other side, you'll have that quarter of an inch overlap. First, tack it down at the high point, and give it a little bit of pull.
And at this point, what's your iron temperature?
And right now, just a tack here.
Terry, what's your iron temperature? at this
You have to
point?
play with it depending on the material you're using.
But
This one on monocoat, I'm at about 3/4. That's about, it's about 200 degrees.
so you're not trying to shrink anything, you're
No.
just trying to
No.
get gooey in.
Yeah, but it's gotta be hot enough to really activate. Now, once I've got it down in two places, it's gonna stay there, and I try to get this as straight as I can. Now, I pull diagonally against this joint and this joint, and pull it. I don't know whether you could see that little wrinkle disappear. Not sure how this is gonna attach to that little one. And now, you see, I'll pull this way against that and this, going diagonally. I'll tack it down here.
Well, Terry didn't say so.
You see, there's not much holding. Now do the same thing. Now, can you see the ripple in there?
Yeah.
Now watch as it partially disappears.
But you're giving that a pretty good pull, so
I am pulling it as hard as I can,
so the tack has to be really good, is the other part of the message.
okay? Now, you can see the wrinkles. Okay.
Wow.
Now, there are no wrinkles this way, there's a little bit this way.
So near the
Now I go halfway, and I pull this just tight enough to remove those. Now, I'll pull on it tight. So you then go halfway.
You just pick the middle, or you typically always do
Yeah,
the middle?
just work in halves, and that. And now that's tight, I can go ahead and join between them. tell you, this is the first time I've had a monocot iron in my hand in almost 10 years.
That's-
I haven't done anything since I've been down here.
Since, that's 2016, okay, yeah.
And when I was, I mentioned this to somebody else earlier, or talking. I did most of my covering, particularly monocoat. Now, when I was dealing with silk and dope, I didn't, but dealing with monocoat, I did it in my den, sitting there with my wife watching television. And I did it on the floor.
Ah, okay.
And I brought a piece of carpet with me. I thought maybe I would do that here. I wouldn't have had to use the carpet since it is carpeted floor.
Why the carpet? Why do you like the carpet? It makes static.
Have you pulled out the wingtip yet on that?
Yeah, I just sealed all the wingtip, or the leading edge.
Yeah, I'd still see some activity around the wingtip, that's.
Yeah, that lasts real big, yeah.
Doesn't take long to tap it in, but.
Right? Yeah.
As somebody that used to do the fabric and dope when I was a teenager, what I've forgotten is, when I use this, it's too easy to say, let it shrink, I don't care how I tack it down. But in the olden days, your fabric and dope and everything, you had to have this discipline to get it so that when you sprayed it with water or whatever, you would in fact tighten up.
Yeah, right. It only went so much, yeah.
So the thing I've forgotten is the
Yeah,
discipline of pulling it like
One
that.
of the benefits that I had sitting on the floor was I could use my feet.
Ah,
And
okay.
I'd put both feet on the wing while I was pulling on it.
Ah, okay.
Now, you can see that's pretty tight. There's a little bit of a wrinkle right there.
That looks as good as some of the things
But
I got hanging up in the corner.
Now I seal this edge.
Terry, on that edge, your very first tack, that was what, like 1.5 inches, 2 inches behind the leading edge? You didn't do it right on the leading edge, I noticed.
Yeah, pretty much.
Was there a reason for that, or, cause I've always hit the leading edge myself, but yeah, alright.
I noticed your iron is bare. Have been using a sock on my iron. Is that?
Yeah.
Same here, yeah.
Is it
Now,
best to use it bare?
Where you've got the dihedral bend, it doesn't want to go straight. But if you heat it a little bit before you pull it, it will conform.
Concentrated.
We got special here in our lifestyle we have, yeah.
Now, you'll notice that I'm working from where I started and going from there and heating and then pulling after it's heated.
On this wing, you started with the top. Did you normally start with the top, or do you have a preference for the
It
bottom?
doesn't really matter. Usually I would start with the bottom so
Bottom up,
that
right.
the top material overlaps.
Gotcha.
That's
Great.
good
Yeah.
point.
No, fair.
Terry, you might not have heard the question, do you have a preference for a sock or no sock on the iron?
I have very, very rarely used a sock.
Really?
And the thing that I found that I did not like with the sock is that it reduced the heat to the point where I really couldn't I wasn't comfortable with the finish that I was getting. with the attachment.
Yeah,
And,
with the sock on,
the
you can't
socks,
tack it. like
if you,
this.
if you heat it up to the point where you're getting it good with the sock, you burn the sock out very quickly. So I just,
Either that or they aren't.
That's what I meant on the axis.
Oh, that's right, the heat gun, that's right.
Yep. You had mentioned you could clean the iron, you can clean it with the alcohol, the iron pot. You said about cleaning the iron when I asked you, I didn't ask you particles.
I don't understand your question.
I asked you about cleaning the shoe on the iron.
Oh,
And you said use alcohol.
cold, after it's cold, yeah. Okay, now,
Alcohol.
okay, yep.
Well, this is the part that I have trouble with, is getting it around the curved surface on the end of the weapon.
The key is doing a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
Now, I had asked Terry about going around cowls and really bad wingtips, because I was using an iron and trying to pull it. But
Take a look at that, and other than this one area right here,
It looks like it's shrunk
it
already.
looks like it's already been shrunk.
Hmm.
It does.
Now, I could work on this a little bit. I might be able to get that out, but. Yeah, that's a little better.
yeah.
Pulling it that tight, you think you've changed any of the wing deflections or any of the
No,
wing?
not if it's built properly.
Yeah.
So now,
If it were taped down.
Now
and
we've
pulled,
got-
you might,
we've got
but it's
two
kind of
things
floating
here
in
that we've got to
there.
contend with.
So,
And what I like to do is go into that corner and come out at a 45-degree angle. That allows you to pull this.
I tricked him into less of hardware in there
No,
too.
I can't go
What was
underneath
the
that.
challenge?
So now, I pull this tight. And I'm working.
Like a vice, yeah. Got so many from the move that hanger damage.
And when I get this done, I'll show you a unique tool that, if you can find one that'd be worth picking up.
Harry Higley.
The nice thing on this, start this out. And now you've got perfectly nice finished area there that can be rolled over. And on the first, it's not that critical on this one, but when you're doing the overlap, it is really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's strange with scissors because some of these ones, the Fisker cells that are, you know, claimed to be so sharp, they got special coatings and stuff on it. They grab the monica, they don't release, you know, this, the Teflon one especially.
Okay, now, you can see how that was done for that trailing edge.
Nice.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Nice, right?
It's pretty sweet.
Now, you'll still have to, there's a little bit of a gap there because you went to 45, there's a little bit of a gap there, but that's easy enough either to do with the other layer, cut it a little bit different so you get that on the other, or just put an extra piece on there. It'll be fine. Okay. Now, what I'd like to do, we're here with this control horn, I'd like to get this underneath, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that with this. Didn't realize you were holding it.
Yeah, just trying to help give you some third hand.
Now, in space like this, we can go with this.
What's your eye?
Yeah. Are you on the high or the low setting on that trim iron? On the trim iron there, is that the high setting?
High,
The
yeah.
high? Okay.
If you're using ultra coat, you'd go with low.
Okay.
So a general ultra coat is a lower temperature application? In general?
Yeah, the instructions will generally tell you what, but it's really not critical. Play with it a little bit and get it to the point where you're comfortable with.
Yeah, ultra coats are 150 to 180. And there's a lights, yeah. And red bear, and if you have the old red bear, it's a 120. It's all the packs. It's all the packs.
I think you can see how beneficial this tool is.
Where'd you get that tool?
Yeah. Okay, you mentioned it was put out by Harry Higley. And again, everything I've got is 40 to 50 years old. So whether they are still available, whether you can find them,
I've run across Higley, the places that are still selling kits may have it, and I'm thinking of Brodak, the control line place. I think I've run across some Harry Higley stuff there.
Yeah, Top Flight makes a similar version, it's
Yeah.
not quite as.
here's where that was particularly beneficial, that little tool on this leading edge, when you're covering from the other side and doing the top, then you can get a real nice joint that looks
I gotta look at it, yeah. I think
and you'll notice that I'm working here from where it's already attached to the open.
You could print them.
I gotta look at
Oh, Harry Higley, he's the guy who got the yellow books out of.
Yes,
He wrote all, I got the whole set, yeah.
Made a lot of spinner nuts and things, odd building tools, and kind of like all the gaps that,
Yeah, but his books were really good. I like those.
right?
So let's see.
eBay's had sometimes you get lucky on eBay as well for those.
It's got some figures that the leg sits in. I'm not sure what's going on.
It's got like gaps or something, it's really wild. Not gonna find that, I don't think.
Yeah.
okay, what I'd like to do here is, make several cuts. Along that convex surface.
Would you normally cover the tip first when you do wings, or do you cover the tip last? So that piece on the end of the tip?
This,
Yeah,
it'll be part of this bottom.
you'll do it as a bottom up, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And now you can take each one of those sections and very carefully, the key is to heat, and that's the point, one of the main reasons I brought this wing. And somebody who was here early showed, but you take a look at that wingtip, that was done as one piece. There's no piecing on it, it's all, the top rolled over and the bottom rolled up. And
Wish I could do
the key to doing that, and Gordon said something about using the heat gun.
Right.
Yeah, that's the
Use
way
the
I've
iron.
been trying. That's the way I've been trying.
Because what
Unsuccessful.
the heat gun spreads the heat out too much. It's heating area that you're not ready to use.
Okay.
And it also dissipates that, where when I'm using this now, as I'm going over this, I am actually heating the material before I'm attaching it. And as I heat it, I pull it, and that stretches it. And you can see right now, part of it's attached and part of it's not. And as I go here, I will heat it and pull it. So that I'm actually heating it so I can stretch it. And a lot of people have the impression that when they get an airframe ready to cover, that it's done. When you get ready to cover, you're halfway there. It will take you more time to cover than it does to build if you're covering well. And taking your time and getting the little details.
Now, will you be able to use the Higley tool under there, or will you have to do something different to trim
what?
that? Will you be able to use the Higley to
Oh,
trim
yeah.
that?
Oh,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, the turn, yeah. You see? That must be the key to the side, yeah, 'cause I just. How do you get your monocoat over monocoat not to bubble very much?
You work from the middle out.
Middle out?
Yep.
Okay.
If,
But you do use the heat, you're not using acetone or any of the chemical?
no, generally just heat.
Okay. Yeah, cause then your monocoat over monocoats are so smooth. Yeah.
Well, the thing I've discovered is that some people advocate using Windex to lay down trim, and that will work if you can get the bubbles out of it.
Okay.
But you have to be disciplined and get the bubbles out and then let it sit a day or two. I tried that on Ultracoat, it does not work. You come back in a day or two and it's falling off.
What I have used rather than Windex, and I was telling somebody earlier today, I use a little bit of dish detergent in a quart of water.
Have you had any success doing that with Ultracoat?
Yeah.
Okay, something else to try,
Mm.
because the Windex doesn't work on Ultracoat.
So you use that in a position?
Yeah, you can float it, use a credit card to squeegee it out, it takes care of the bubbles, there's still some moisture in there, from back in the day, it's kind of dried out. On Monaco, you can go ahead with low heat, dump it down, and you're done. First time I tried that with Ultracoat, I came back in the morning, it was all laying on the floor. So I had to do it from the center out and go painfully slow, like an eighth of an inch at a time, holding trim and.
Okay, so you tack it down, put the stuff on, you tack it and squeeze it out, and let it sit overnight, then you can come back and do all the things.
On Monaco, yeah, but on the Ultracoat, I had to do what Terry said, I had to just take the iron, set the temperature low enough that it would attack. and
Okay.
shrink. Wow.
Take a feel of what you've got there.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah.
Wow, Terry.
My wings, Terry.
That's impressive.
Now, remember, it hasn't been shrunk yet.
Yeah,
So
that's what's
now the
weird.
question is, how do you know when it's shrunk?
Well, don't stop working on it. How much is it gonna really shrink, man?
They broke down fix it.
If I can't use an airbrush, I'll rent somebody else's. High and low center.
Now,
High and low center.
I go over it very quickly.
Were you using the high or low setting?
High.
High, okay.
And you control that by how far away you are. But now, look how much it's wrinkling. You see how bad it's getting? Okay. Now, you've activated everything. Now you go back.
So the first pass was just to activate it, okay.
Just to start activating everything.
Whoever invented monetary through those movies.
Tell me about it, right? Yeah, so I wish they'd bring solar text back, that was great. It's like Monaco for clock, you know? Yeah.
Wow. Nice. That was a pretty ugly wing even after I fixed it.
The problem is,
Now-
Gordon, you gotta do the other side and then.
Yeah. Well, who did what? Question though, you didn't, iron down the sheeted areas, you just did
Not
the
yet.
edges?
Not yet.
Okay, but you.
Now that it's all shrunk, now you go and make the attachments.
Okay, would you make the same statement on a sheeted fuselage?
Yep.
You would tack it,
Tack it, stretch it, make it look like it's already shrunk, then you shrink it,
shrink it? and
then you go over it.
Terry, you said you, did the ribs on that other plane.
Yeah, I'll do that on this.
You are gonna
It's
do
just
this too, okay.
Then-
Already.
what, which one did I unplug?
The trim iron.
Yeah, the trim line.
Have you had success not tacking it to the ribs
And then,
versus?
when you're,
No,
when you're
he's-
done with that,
he's
and you're
advocating
over a solid surface,
What I would do,
and I gotta get,
yeah, but not trying to iron it down to a solid surface.
now,
Which the bonnet
when
people
when you're covering over a solid surface, like a fuselage, or now on this wingtip, or the wing center section, yeah, this. When I'm working on the floor, it's easier.
Now we know why.
Yeah.
So now you've got it all shrunk, everything looks good. Now you take this, and when you see the color change, that means that the adhesive is activated.
it's easier to handle. I mean, this is when you put it in.
Another question, wing with cap strips, Terry?
I understand what you're saying.
Wing with cap strips?
Yep.
Let it float or glue it down?
Depends on what kind of finish you want. If you're going to the Ram show for competition, you don't wanna seal. All you wanna do is do the edge, because then everything stays nice and straight. If you want it for flying, seal it, because that strengthens it, and the monocoat actually gives additional strength to the structure. So take a look.
Yeah, cap strips, you're saying seal,
Yeah, in case you don't know, cap strip is like a 1/4 inch
They
strip.
put a
and
1/4 strip
you-
on
You
it.
put over a thin rib, but all the sheeting is sized to
Yeah.
accommodate that, so it's all flush.
gotcha.
But, big,
This has cap strips on it. You can take a look at that.
Okay. But you're still sealing it down or tagging it down with the air gun rather than the sealant iron?
Usually, yes, and part of the reason for that is, the finish. The air gun, the air doesn't scratch the surface. Where if you're using the iron, you can get a little bit of surface, discoloration and and denting. If you push on it too hard, you can dent the balsa
it's
underneath.
cold to shrink.
Yeah, with the gun and the glove, you don't get that.
No, really nice.
A little bit of patience,
So does it make sense?
Yes, it does.
Pretty good.
Now, how do you keep from twisting it when you do the bottom?
It's, as long as the structure is strength, the structure is built solid, you're not gonna twist it. If you had something like a lightweight, one of those 3/4 ounce indoor models, but you don't use monocoat on something like that. You use a different material, you don't shrink it. But any structure that's built solid enough that the monocoat's not gonna shrink it.
Well, I noticed too, when Terry was pulling it, he was pulling it against the structure he was holding. If that wing was like weighted down with a bunch of blankets on one side and you were pulling it on the other, you in fact could twist it.
Yeah.
But as you were pulling it, you were kind of, all the pull was right local there.
Yeah.
It wasn't across the whole wing.
Right. Yeah, cause you see, I didn't take any additional, and that is, there's no warp to it, that's perfectly. So holding it down here, and there's no change in that structure. You can look down that wing,
Yeah, no, I looked down at, yeah.
and I didn't take any special precautions.
So basically what he's saying is you shouldn't be able to twist the wing with monocoat, no matter how much you.
No, I'm not saying that, because sometimes you want to twist it. So if you want to put positive in it, you can put this down, weight it down here, and prop something up here, and now heat it, and it'll take that twist.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I'm saying for as hard as you were pulling it, you shouldn't be able to
No.
twist it.
No,
Okay.
you can do it intentionally if you want to put washout or wash in on a wingtip to twist that wing. But if you're building a pattern airplane, you build that washout or wash-in in the cutting of the foam core.
Right. Does anybody in the club cut foam cores anymore?
I have the equipment to do it.
I do too, yeah, that's yes.
But, if anyone wanted to do it, I'd be more than happy to
Yeah, no, same here, yeah.
help with it.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's another art form.
yeah, yeah, hot wire cut, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not quite enough to do the other half of the wing.
No, it is. That's fantastic. Did you?
Yeah,
You didn't bring your wing?
let's do something else.
Do you have any secrets, so now you have this little piece of monocoat here that's left, and you keep it, right? How do you keep it when you've already peeled the backs off of it from sticking to others in the box? Like, how, do you have a way that you keep the monocoat usable?
If you didn't
No.
catch it, if you didn't catch it, if there's twist in it that shouldn't be,
Okay.
you could take it
Here's-
out, fold it in and heating.
Show you how to put
Right. It's kind of an art form.
a starburst.
What are you doing now, Terry?
I'm gonna put a starburst on that wing.
Oh,
Nice.
that's a lot.
You missed that Falcon 56 is a 3-channel.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah, it is.
I've got one in my basement that I get, that's 3-channel too.
Really?
I went right over the flats.
Oh, man.
But I guess you, I don't know how you said, I guess you put the rudder and the elevator all the same.
Oh, that other mode thing, yes.
Yeah.
I bet you could.
Yeah, I put the rudder on the left and
Just like you would normally, right?
Well, I guess.
Yeah.
The problem is you can have it just trying to turn with the ailerons,
Right.
like I was taught to fly.
Yeah.
In the Windex pot, so you could
Yeah.
float.
Yeah, you could float that on with some index, give it dry, drag, and kind of dry it, and then get a try to push the bubbles out. The Windex does something.
Yeah, when you're standing in front of the camera.
Kind of tap it down.
Well, now you can see much strong, big behind.
But you can like turn it over and you'll see it tap, so if you come back in a day or two, it's dried out, and it's really easy.
Yeah, what I-
Low temperature to put it.
What I would normally do with this starburst is I would cut whatever number, like I did on that, I've got, 6 on each side. I cut those out all at one time, so I have all of them, and I measure each one, this with being exactly the same on all of them, so that they all get to be the same. And I generally go somewhere near the center, and that's not gonna work, because it's not long enough. Okay, let's do this way.
Yeah, that'll work. I can keep up with that.
So you're actually activating a really small area at once.
Yep.
So that's what makes it so that it bubble.
when you do that, then you put a star on the top of it.
Right.
That's,
Please don't.
yeah, screwed that up.
Yeah, blow the water towards the narrow.
Then I would take some alcohol and clean that off.
I would have tempted to start at the narrow and go to the wide. Terry, we noticed you started it at the wide end, and went to the narrow end.
Yeah,
Does it
doesn't-
matter where?
Doesn't matter,
Okay.
no. Just happened to be where I started then.
What was your thought?
I didn't have
Well, I
enough
would have
overlap.
attempted to start at the narrow.
They cut it
and go
too
to the
short.
wide.
You said you would do the bottom. So would you pull this edge all the way up to here? Would you, if you did the bottom first,
Kind
would
of
you have
like
covered all
starting
the way
at
up
the
to
center
here?
and working out.
I would have cut, the bottom I would have cut, I would have gone with a knife, just like this, so that it's very even with the
Okay,
edge.
okay.
Then overlap that
Gotcha.
part.
If you wanted to take that off, Terry, because you screwed up, how would you do that? You screwed up. You don't remember that word?
I think the preferred method is crash the airplane. And then fix it.
That trim is not gonna come off.
Gotcha.
Nah.
That's what happened, that's where the way I got it.
What about a solid surface like an aileron? What about a solid surface like the aileron? You can stretch it just as hard?
You don't need to, because you're attaching it completely.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll move.
You see the plugs, I just put the trailing edge when they're replacing it.
Now, I do this a little bit differently, depending on whether I am covering the top of the wing and the bottom wing at the same color.
That was to repair a.
Yeah, I can go that way.
To rip the edge out.
Yeah, I can go that way.
You wanna get the wing out of the way, Terry?
No, it's okay. See, I'm allowing just about a half an inch
Delete something and
extra
back in
there.
and sand it as an inch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I put the double on the inside just for good measure.
I did that once. I was cutting something like this, and I had my finger just over the
Oh,
edge.
the tips.
And as I was going, I said, I'm gonna cut my finger.
Watched it happen.
I knew it just before I did it. I said, oh shit.
Yeah, I got one right there, yeah.
So you only cut
So
a piece.
here's a situation where you don't have an edge to peel from. So just very gently with the knife, slide it underneath the backing. Oops, sorry. And you pull it right off.
Terry, you only cut a piece wide enough to do half of it. You don't wrap it around the.
No, no.
Why is that? What, I typically have.
It's just easier to do it with two. You try wrapping it around, you run into all kinds of.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, cause you want to fold, right? You like to fold over that?
There is a left and right, yeah.
Well, I don't know if anyone else has tried this or not, but I have, one of these oscillating tools, that they use for flesh cutting, and boy, do
Oh,
they
yeah.
work nice for
Yeah,
cutting.
good
hinges.
For hinges.
I didn't have those when,
When you were
when I was
making them, right?
building.
I've got the Higley tool, it's all mechanical and uses X-Acto blades, and I like that works really good too.
Okay.
I got the Dubrow setup that does, what they marks the center and then you go back with the
Yeah.
forks and shoot.
Yeah.
Got a little red on there, doesn't
Okay.
it?
That's all they don't.
So that color
don't tell
comes off.
management.
Okay, so now I've tacked it at one end, and I'm pulling it real hard.
But again, locally, you're
You
not
know,
pulling it
yeah.
across the whole piece, which will
And
keep
now-
it from warping.
I'll do the same thing as I did with the wing. Tack it in the middle. And go half. 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 And then just work.
Nice, yeah. It's a cool tool, right?
I've never,
I haven't seen one before, yeah.
never seen, I never thought about using scissors.
You're still just doing edges, you've just gone around edges. That was a question. I've never been able to use scissors
Yeah, I prefer a knife. Yeah, exactly.
And now you just
Yeah.
go from,
Scissors might be less tendency to gouge into the wood.
from the seal, just work your way around. And as you're doing this, the iron is heating the material before you're attaching it.
So by heating the material, you're not stressing the wood when you're attaching it.
Well, that's kind of you. Cut me my insurance.
That wasn't the install, that was for the control arm.
Oh, well, okay, still, yeah. Now, Terry, have you done the surface yet, or is that still to come?
Still to come.
Okay.
case like this. I want this right on the surface.
You didn't use heat.
I want this right down on the surface, I don't want the space.
But when you put the next piece on, you'll go over?
Yep.
Oh, okay,
Because the next piece will also wrap around.
okay. Right, yeah? Yeah, I didn't realize, stretching it so much before you shrink it was a big piece of the key to it, not sagging over time.
The question that I want Terry to answer is has he worked that longitudinally?
Yeah.
Right.
Is that bowed because you pull on it now?
Yeah, it might be.
No,
No?
And,
no,
Bend over straight
no,
down,
look,
look at it.
it's straight. It's straight.
will it bow if you fasten the surface?
It could, but not now.
That work for you?
No, you don't, you got.
Because now,
You have it attached.
now I'm gonna go ahead and attach it.
That won't cause it to shrink. You're trying to break my nail on?
I got a little tiger pressure.
But that won't cause it to bow as it shrinks.
No.
Okay.
That's why I asked him about the wing too, I thought, when
Yeah.
he shrunk it where it was pulled so tightly.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's part of the question. What building technique is it that you use on your ribs? Are you using a CA, a white glue, or what's holding it so firm in your building technique that?
It's just structure, I mean, it's just.
That's probably 20 years old, except for the ribs I repaired to the CA.
It's a
So-
CA.
So it's probably white glue.
Yeah, because
What
it
I
was so
repaired
old.
was yeah, it's probably.
What was the old stuff, Ambrose?
Yeah.
Ambrose.
Ambrose.
Yeah, that was
Wow.
orange.
Yeah.
I still got an original too of Ambrose. I went through
That
all
means
my
with your
old
approval?
Absolutely.
I was going through my old engines and I found the tube of Ambrose still in the package. I bought it in a box.
Wow.
I can't wait to build.
Wow.
We had a guy in our club that used type on.
But I think type on, yeah.
The whole family
Scan's
had
good.
it.
Yep.
But you gotta have so much patience.
At times.
Really? This guy did a club.
It's water, which will warp it,
Okay.
and it's weight.
It's heavy, right? Yeah.
That's a lot of weight.
I was trying to get out of your way.
He's
And you can't clean it.
You gonna do any more
It'll
stuff?
leave a residue.
Really?
Well, it depends on whether anyone has questions.
Balls and you'll leave a residue when you, if you're monocoating it,
Uh-huh.
even a finish.
So I think
It's
I've
not
covered
sucking it and it'll-
the majority of what,
Yeah, you don't want.
what you'd run into. If anyone's got any questions,
Listen up.
Yeah.
be
And if you got.
more than happy. Oh, it is available?
I just found one.
I found one.
You take and put a little bit in the.
I don't think they're really available out there. Those yellow.
Now you have to show me how to get some.
Yeah.
How much do they want?
Those yellow ones.
20 bucks. 20 bucks? That's reasonable.
I thought it was an amazing tool, I mean, I'll tell you.
It is.
Does the sheeting we should have some ribs?
It should be, yeah.
So I gotta find a way to close that gap.
So, he did, I just typed it in.
No, you just.
I mean, I haven't finished gluing it.
Yeah,
I
so
just
I
put
did,
it
but
into
it's
the
so
spar,
far.
so I haven't
Yeah.
finished rolling it up. but
Yeah.
I did not pull it.
it's a hidden- hidden value.
I didn't pull it.
Because
The leading edge,
I was gonna break
put it in behind.
Jimmy Evers.
Right.
Well, the trick is to do it, and do it locally.
So you
But it looks like the same.
let it dry.
Okay, one of the,
Well, I wanted to.
Because I.
One of the things-
It's been down to like low blankets.
As instructions say, go
When you
glue it to the spar,
Yeah, pull on it.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can end up with a distance between
That's what I got.
the leading edge and the sheet.
okay, one of the things that people ask about, when something has been around for a while, like 20 years for those two, how do you clean it? Windex does a good job, and this Clean Master, I had something that came in an identical package to this that was labeled for Monaco,
All the top flight stuff.
but
Yeah.
I'm sure that's not available, and I think this is the same stuff.
Clean Master.
Top Flight just bought it in this packet and put a different label on it. But I looked at this, you can buy this for about $7 a bottle, $6.99 I think is what I found it for.
What's it called?
Clean Master.
Clean Master.
It's Clean Master, and comes in a nice spray. And now, so you just spray a little bit on, take a clean cloth, I don't know whether you can see a difference in there, but it's a good way to clean Monaco. That or using Windex does a pretty good job too.
I've had good luck with the McGuire's clear plastic window stuff for cars. It's a plastic polish, and it does pretty good as well.
How is it with the fuel though? How is it with the fuel?
It just puts this like wax coat on, and the fuel flows right off of it. It doesn't, certainly
Oh, so you
doesn't.
don't use that to clean after you fly?
No,
No.
no, no.
No, it's like when I
Use an alcohol base to clean the fuel off of the residue. It's been a long time since I've had to do that, because the waste that comes off of electric motors is real easy to wipe off.
I'm enjoying that. And my wife is too.
Yeah, everything I've got, I haven't flown